Hello and welcome to The Globe as we bring you up to speed with the news making headlines here on South African soil, the continent and the globe. My name is Pearl Shonwe.
And my name is Mpho Dikgotsong Marna.
Ayate.
Indeed, Dikgotsong Gurula Mraro, and thank you for joining us. Let's go to our top story now.
The main opposition party in Zimbabwe, the Movement for Democratic Change, has announced that it will be taking part in the country's elections on Monday. This follows earlier reports that the party had planned to boycott the elections, alleging fraudulent activities from the ruling Zanu-PF to rig them. Speaking at a media briefing in Harare, MDC leader Nelson Chamisa said Zimbabwe's election was threatened by fraud and accused electoral authorities of bias, but said his MDC party would not boycott the vote. While for more on the ground and the situation on the ground, we cross to our reporter Chriselda Lewis in Harare. Chriselda, good evening. We're just a day away from what has been termed a historic election post Mugabe. You are in Harare. What's the word on the ground ahead of the elections?
Well, Pearl, Zimbabweans go to the polls in just less than a week in what will be the first election in this country since the resignation of former President Robert Mugabe, which saw, of course, Emmerson Mnangagwa rise to the highest office in the land. Of course, you'd remember the scenes that we're seeing here today are a far cry from the violent protests that we saw through several parts of this country in November last year, protests calling for the resignation of Mugabe. And of course, the build-up to this election has not been without some concern, as you already pointed out, to the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance raising some concerns. Chief amongst those concerns include the security of the ballots as well as the design of the ballots as well. But many of the Zimbabweans that we've spoken to since we arrived here in Harare are saying that they're looking forward to the polls and they're waiting in anticipation to place their mark on that ballot paper. Speaking to some of the analysts as well, they are saying that they believe that top of mind for many of the Zimbabweans who will participate in this poll is to hear someone who will change the fortunes of the economy of Zimbabwe. Of course, the two front runners in this election, Zanu-PF's Emmerson Mnangagwa, as well as the MDC Alliance's Nelson Chamisa. Those two are the front runners. And what we heard as well from the chief of police here is that about 17,000 police officers will be deployed around the country to ensure that this election goes ahead smoothly and will be free and fair. But of course, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, of course, in charge and trying to make sure that it does go ahead without glitches. You recall, of course, in the run-up or the build-up to this election, there had been incidences where we saw in Bulawayo where President Emmerson Mnangagwa had been campaigning, where that blast went off, raising some concerns about whether this election will go ahead without any glitches. What we do understand from the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission at this stage is that ballot papers have been delivered to 8 of the 10 provinces in the country. Joining me now to chat more about that and the state of readiness is Utlwile. Ndate, thank you very much for joining us, Slangwana, who is the acting CEO of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Sir, thank you very much for your time late this evening. Let's talk about the state of readiness. I know that you already started with the biometric system last year already. Is the ZEC ready for the elections?
Yes, sure. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has put everything in place in order to ensure that all the citizens that are eligible to cast their vote on the 30th of July can do so, because it is indeed their constitutional right to do so. As I speak now, in terms of the preparations, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has actually procured all the election materials that are needed. All the essential election material have started moving to the various provinces. We have got 10 provinces. As I speak now, out of the 10 provinces, we are left with only 2 provinces where we have not yet delivered the ballot papers, the voters' rolls, and all other essential materials. But that process is ongoing, and I'm sure by tomorrow we should be through with the delivery of these essential materials to all the 10 provinces.
The training of electoral staff, you are also close to finalizing at this point. Approximately how many electoral staff are we looking at? The reason I ask this question is because there have been quite a number of concerns that have been raised in the build-up to this election about the security of the ballot papers, as well as the issue of the design of the ballot itself, which is an issue we'll get to shortly.
Yes, sure. In terms of training of the staff, we have already trained our staff. The total number of the electoral officers for this election is about 130,000. The training of the constituency elections officers has already been done. The training of the wards election officers has already been done. The training of the presiding officers who are going to be presiding over this election in the 10,985 polling stations has already been done. Today is actually the last day of the training of the polling officers. Tomorrow we'll simply be mopping up and then preparing to deploy them to their various polling stations with their kit, which we are finalizing as we do our last distribution of the election materials to the provinces.
Is security of concern to the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission? I think we can certainly point to one of the issues that was much publicized about the blast that took place in Bulawayo, where President Emerson Mnangagwa had been campaigning. So raising concerns about whether the climate that this election will be held under will be one where security is enough.
So far, we feel that security is enough. The Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is working closely with the Zimbabwe Republic Police in maintaining law and order, not only throughout the country, but also in our around and in our polling stations. And I would want also to mention that this training that I've talked about for the electoral officers today, that started yesterday, today is continuing. We might have some polishing up tomorrow before they deploy. We also invited the police officers who are going to be manning these maintaining order in the polling stations to also come and train with our officers. Not only that, but the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has also invited the election agents for all the candidates participating in this election to come and train or attend our training sessions, so that they understand the processes and the procedures that go on in the polling station. Let me just add that in terms of securing also the ballot paper and all the essential materials, we have, as a commission, made sure that when we get to the polling stations, when we deploy tomorrow, we are deploying our electoral officers, and we are asking the election agents for various parties and candidates to also accompany our presiding officers to the polling stations, so that they feel that they are part and parcel of the process that takes place, so that we don't have a situation where they are out of sight of the election material, including the ballot paper.
Mr. Slagwana, there have also been accusations that the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission is militarized, that there are soldiers in the majority who are part of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. Is this true? You've previously dispelled some of these accusations, but it certainly is of major concern, in particular for the official opposition, the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance.
Yes, it's not true at all that we have got the serving military personnel in the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission. You are aware that our country went through a liberation struggle. And so we have some people who participated in the liberation struggle. And well, as they participated in the liberation struggle, well, they were trained out there in the countries that hosted us during the liberation struggle. They came home, maybe one or two of them joined, created the new army,
yes.
Then they served and then they retired. So when the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission was being built and they advertised, so those people then, like any other citizen.
Yeah, but the accusation then would be then that which has been, is that perhaps, the placing of these soldiers would be undue favor to what some have said to the ruling party, Zanu-PF.
But let me say that it is not true that we have any serving members in the Electoral Commission. That is not true. They are just ordinary citizens like anybody else. They might have served in the military sometime, but they are no longer serving there. They are just ordinary citizens, and they've got the right in any way. By the way, there is no law in this country that says because you once served in this disciplinary force, you cannot change your profession. So that is the issue. So, strictly speaking, we do not have in the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission even a single serving member of the military.
Mr. Slakwana, one of the other issues that was raised, the Movement for Democratic Change Alliance, unhappy about the design of the ballot paper, saying this would give undue favor to the leader of Zanu-PF, Emmerson Mnangagwa. I understand that you had met with political parties to discuss some of the concerns. Why then would the MDC Alliance still be harping on that same issue, if I may, if that meeting was then held?
Yes, the first thing, let me start by saying, in terms of the Constitution of Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has got the responsibility to design, print, and also distribute the ballot papers. So you realize that in designing the ballot paper, we are guided by the electoral law. It says that the candidates are going to be placed on the ballot paper in alphabetical order. Even so, you realize that for the first time we had an unprecedented number of candidates,
yes,
across the elections, whether it's council, member of parliament, including the president. So we have got, for example, for the presidential election,
yes,
we have for the first time 23 candidates. So what we did as a commission, we said, okay, fine. Here is our ballot paper.
Yes.
So what do? We follow the alphabetical order. So you will find that if you follow the alphabetical order, you find that the person who has got a surname which starts with the first or the second alphabet, yes, in the order. That's the way we have designed the ballot paper.
Mr. Slakwana, I think, one of the other concerns, of course, was relating to the fact that you would have ballot papers that are sent to various of these provinces. You are saying that there's enough security relating to that. Can you assure Zimbabweans and the rest of the world who all have their eyes on Zimbabwe that this particular election will go ahead without incident, without any violence, and without some of the scenes that we saw in the build-up to this election? Can you assure them?
We want to encourage all the participants to make sure that they also have a role to play in ensuring that our election does not have violence, because the players themselves, they've got a role to do so. But in terms of, as far as we are concerned as the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, we have put everything in place, as I said earlier on, that we work with the Zimbabwe Republic Police to maintain law and order. It is their duty to do so, and it is their constitutional mandate to do so. So we would...
Can you assure Zimbabweans, just very quickly, Mr. Slakwana?
Yes, in terms of assuring Zimbabweans, yes, Zimbabweans, we can assure you that your vote will be protected. Your vote will count. And the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission has done just that in terms of preparations.
Mr. Utlwile Slaikwana, the acting CEO of the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission, joining us this evening live from Harare on the state of readiness for the upcoming elections. Of course, much anticipation in this country because for the first time, you'll also know, Pearl, that this is the first time that you will not see the face of the former President Robert Mugabe on the ballot paper. But I think overall, Zimbabweans are looking forward to this election and they say they will exercise their right. But I think top of mind, as I already mentioned, is the fact that they want to vote for someone who will be able to change the fortunes of this country's economy.
And that was our reporter, Chriselda Lewis, coming to us live from Harare, Zimbabwe. We remain in Zimbabwe.